Love is our true divine nature, and our heart serves as the intersection of the spiritual and physical, connecting our soul with our body as the conduit for anchoring our divinity onto the earth plane. Embodying our divinity is the key to our ascension and to manifesting our highest destiny in this life. The teachings of the heart are alchemy. Join spiritual mentor and channel Jennifer Spohr each week on a sacred journey to lift the veil to remembering your divinity and meet other beautiful souls who are living the path of the awakened heart. Hey everyone, I'm excited to welcome as a guest to the show today, Raven Scott. She is a podcaster, author, and trauma-informed human design reader. She shares messages about spiritual healing from narcissistic abuse with human design on Empath and the Narcissist podcast because she believes the karmic experiences awaken you to your authentic soul and you just need the guide to call your power back. I'm so excited to have you here and to have this conversation today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. So good to be here, Jennifer.
Yes, I'm so excited to have this conversation. So the dynamic of the work and how you've brought it all together is so unique, and I'm excited to dig into that. First, I would love for you to share with us what led you to that work.
Uh, just the healing journey from experiencing that type of abuse. First of all, I didn't know I was experiencing that abuse when I was in it. Went to therapy after I left, and she's like, oh, yeah, after quite a few sessions, she was able to confirm with me that I experienced emotional and sexual abuse. And then even after that, I didn't even know it was a narcissist. And then, God, I don't even know, probably the very beginning start of the movement of talking about narcissism out on the internet, it was like, oh my gosh, like that ticks all the boxes. And so as I was healing and doing like discovering what in the world happened to me, it was just out of my investigation and my healing process that this work came out to being. I started a podcast in 2020 called Return to Calm. Like I just wanted to bring some type of spiritual influence to the world somehow. And I had no vision, no understanding. I just felt called by spirit to start it. And then that led me down, the whole of understanding, discovering my human design, writing the book, kind of like a memoir slash healing guide, the first book I wrote that just explained like how I healed. Like this is an aspect, this is how it affected me in my human design as I can kind of interpret it and understand it. And here's the tool to help you, if you relate to me, heal from this part of being abused. And like I have all these different parts and stages. So it just evolved. I just kept following the breadcrumbs as we're supposed to do. And it just led me into this work about, I have a second book. I'm like, I can't believe I haven't have a second book. It's just kind of like a whole big ship that spirit built, and I just kind of followed along and listened, and now it's like a big yacht. I can't turn it or stop it.
The train has left the station.
The train has left the station.
The train is not coming.
Exactly.
Do you do you recall, like, was there any one or more defining moments or catalyzing moments where you knew you were being called in a certain direction?
Yes, absolutely. So I was doing meditation, yoga, and I was kind of leaning into that. I had gotten my human design chart read, and it was kind of like involved in this big coaching program. And while I was in that, I had a dream. And actually, it wasn't just a dream, it was like in my dreams, my deceased grandfather visited me. And it was, growing up, I was raised in a very conservative Christian, like the entire family, grandmother, aunt, uncle, parents, they all were very much into the Christian religion. And so anything outside of the Bible or Jesus, like you don't, worship any other gods, you don't do tarot, that's the devil. And so I was starting to kind of investigate all these different things, my spiritual path. And I was concerned that I don't know, like, is this good? Is this like, is this of the devil? Am I like doing the right thing? And so I was a little bit doubting myself. So he came to me in the dream and he said to me, and he was there, and I was like, I can't believe it. Like, he's here, right? I haven't seen him since I last saw him before he died. And like when spirits visit you, I don't know why I'm asking you, like you've had a spirit visit you before, but if anyone
I have
listening has,
a
you
lot,
have, right?
a
Okay.
lot.
So if you've experienced this, and I've only really truly experienced it one time, and this is him visiting, they they have like this smile, like this Coraline smile. Like it's a big
Mhm.
smile and they're talking to you through the smile, but like the lips don't move like when you're actually talking to someone else. And I was actively communicating with him. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you're here. I'm so excited to see you." And he said, he was giggling and he was so happy and proud of me. And he said, "You're on the right path. Keep doing what you're doing, keep moving forward. You're on the right path." And that was so affirming to me. And then in the dream as well, I was still shocked. I'm like, this can't be real. Like, this can't be him. So I asked if I could hug him. And then I hugged him, and I was expecting to just like hug a cloud and fall right through him, but he was solid.
Oh, wow.
And I could feel him and I felt his embrace, and it was a solid hug. And then I like was hugging him so much, I would lean forward and we like leaned into the kitchen counter where we are at, like the cottage of wherever we showed up. He showed up for me. And that blew through like a cloud. And I was just like, he's real. And this construct is not real. Like my brain thought it was the opposite. So that was definitely a very affirming and catalyzing moment.
I got the chills, the full body chills, when you were talking about the part where you went to hug him and he was solid.
Yeah, it was solid. And I told that story to someone else recently I was talking to, Tammy Mastroberti. She was on my podcast and then we went live and she was like, a medium told me, because she has a lot of medium friends, when that embrace, or when they touch you, spirit touches you, or they feel solid and you can actually hold them or hug them. She said that truly is a sign that that spirit guide has come to visit you. It's not made up.
That's so beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like when we get those kind of visitations, that our experiences can be different or like, unique for how we receive them.
Yeah.
It's always so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You experienced one too? Did
I
it
Yes.
help your trajectory?
Yeah, well, this conversation is about you. I will share.
You can
Uh
share.
it wasn't it was in my physical reality. It wasn't in a dream.
Mhm.
I mean, I've had lots of them, but this one stood out more than most of the others because it was happening in my actual physical reality. And I saw my mom, who passed about 12 years ago. And she was in the form of this, like I was watching something on television. There was a television that was on, and above the television, I started to see this outline, and the outline just became clearer and clearer until I was actually seeing her face. Like it was so surreal. There was no mistaking it. I mean, especially with the work I do, and I channel and everything, but when it happens like that in the physical reality, because it takes a lot of energy for them to manifest into the physical reality like that. And she wasn't solid, but it was like this very clear, like transparent kind of outline of her. Yeah. That was probably one of the most profound experiences I had, because I don't see in the physical like that very often.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's really reaffirming that she's always there with you.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. We have I will tell clients this sometimes too. It's like we have so much support in the unseen realms. If you would imagine this football stadium, the largest football stadium you can think of, and imagine that every seat and every part of the field is filled, that's how much support that we have.
That's pretty dang cool. And that reaffirms what I was hearing from Tammy as well. Like there are so many different, and whatever you resonate with, gods, goddesses, spirit
Yeah.
guides, patron saints, all of them.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
like humans need a
Yeah.
box. So why don't we just have one for all the categories?
Right. I know. I just find it so fascinating. I'm also one of those kind of people that, I believe we're eternal students, and so having the willingness to always just, not know, I mean, not know everything, and that's how I feel like we can be open to receive more of these experiences, right? To learn, because we're really willing to see them and feel them. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. Life is a perpetual lesson.
It is. So, I wanted to ask you, I'm feeling guided to ask you about our relationship to love. So, as a fellow empath, I've also had, many personal experiences with narcissists and human design. But something I'm feeling guided to get your input on is, I know on my own personal healing journey, and I'm sure others who are listening can identify with this as well. I realized that I myself had a misidentified, like a skewed relationship or definition of what love was, like because of my own trauma and societal programming and all of that. I really was defining love in more of a codependent dynamic, right? What are your thoughts on that? Have you experienced that as well?
Yes. That was another aha moment that my therapist helped me with. She's like, "Have you heard of this thing called codependency?" And I'm like, "No." She's like, "Well, you may be codependent." She's being very gentle with me about it, but she's like, "Oh my God, this girl is so codependent on everybody, everything and everybody." And it sometimes I feel like we have these tendencies either out of fear or out of certain, human design makeup or where some planet is in our astrological houses kind of sets us up to lean a little bit more on the codependent side. And as an empath, we're always seeking to please others, make sure everyone is emotionally happy around us, especially if you have the open solar plexus, because you're magnifying emotions of everyone around you. And so you have this pressure to make sure there's not unease, right? The good emotions are surrounding you and the pressure of the bad emotions are gone. So whatever you need to do to get those gone will be, manifested in different people pleasing behaviors. And then codependency is something where you are reliant on the other person almost to prove your value. Like you don't have that self-worth strong within yourself, which is weird. When I look at the human design chart, it doesn't matter if your identity center is open or defined, because mine is defined and I was the most insecure, low self-esteem, low self-worth teenager ever. So it's almost like a combination a bit of like the environment you're in. And as best as they tried to support me, I had childhood trauma. I had a bully. I had people who betrayed me in my life and abandoned me and all those things. I just, as an empath, I absorbed those and I took them on as like, those were my problems. And I think a lot of us empaths do that. Like, that was because of me. That was my problem. And we always like self reflect. And instead of what the narcissist does is project out, we're projecting inward, like, I must have done something wrong for them to leave me. I must have done something wrong for them to not like me, or then for them to stop being friends with me or break up with me or cheat on me, like all the things. But inevitably, ultimately what I had to learn was like, stop giving a crap what other people think, because they've got their own mess. And so they're making all these bad choices that, yes, are affecting you, right? There's a
Yeah.
tornado in their wake, but it's not because of you. Like, that's their own issues within their own psyche and their emotions and their own personal trauma that they're not healing. And it's not like, you're bad, that's why they're doing it. Or you're an awful loser and that's why they're cheating on you. Like, no, they just have their own issues. It's nothing to do with you.
The tendency to feel responsible for someone else's well-being and their feelings can be a trauma response, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It can be a trauma response. And maybe it's more heightened in those of us who have that line 6, the role model. We were talking about that before recording.
We're both line 6ers.
The weight of the world is on our shoulders always. But that's a hard lesson to learn too, is like, you can't fix everybody and everything. So maybe that's why we go up into the roof. We're like, I give up. Let's just go away, go up onto the roof and watch everyone. But then from our lessons, we have to learn now in our mature stage when we're ready to go down and serve. And it's like that understanding that you can't fix it, but you're there for people who want to fix it, right? I think when we're younger, we try and fix all the wrong people. I know I did. Fix all the people who don't want to be fixed. And you're ignoring all the people who are healthy for you, and then hopefully we mature into the person who is there to help people who actually want to change and be fixed.
Yeah, and I think you realize at some point that wanting to rescue or help people, that's all an illusion, because you can't change people. Like, people don't change unless they want change,
Yeah. I think it's a bit arrogant. I'm going to admit that I've been arrogant in my youth. It's arrogant for
sure, I was
us
there
to
too.
think
Yeah.
that we could fix them or help them, or especially with narcissists, right? Because they always paint the picture that the ex-girlfriend or the ex-wife was like a horrible cheater, just a drama-filled, narcissist themselves. And then you get in deep and you realize, oh, actually, the narcissist was this person, not the ex. But at the beginning, you're arrogant and you think, well, that's not going to happen to me. Like, our relationship will be perfect and we will never divorce and he will never cheat on me or whatever it is. And so there is a bit of like that youthful folly of arrogance to think that you can fix this person. But
so true. So true. Narcissists, they can be a little sneaky sometimes, especially if, as an empath, if we're not, willing to kind of take off the rose-colored glasses, right? And like see the truth of the relationship. What would be, because sometimes, we don't always spot some of the more obvious signs. So what would be some traits or some signs or things that someone could look for, or that they may notice, that would indicate that there is a narcissist in their life that is potentially, taking advantage?
I mean, I always go back to the number one thing is that they don't take responsibility for their side of a conflict. They're always playing the victim, even the coverts. They're like, you may come to them with an I feel statement. When you did this, that made me feel. And they'll say, but what about me? I feel like this and that. And it's like, wait a second, like, where was my acknowledgement, right? How it works is you're supposed to acknowledge that and say, I'm sorry you feel like that. And move into the conversation with, I hear what you're saying and I acknowledge what you're saying. And when you did this, that made me feel. And you can have a back and forth tennis kind of ping pong conversation that can be difficult, yes, but it can be holding space for both parties. And it just seems to me, no matter what type of narcissist, malignant, covert, social, all the things, right? We have all these boxes now for the narcissist, which was like a single paragraph in the DSM.
Are
now
you a
we've got
narcissist?
this,
Yes or no?
we've got all these books, we got all this stuff. Yeah, all this said was like grandiose, ego. And I mean, it just boils down to they can't ping pong back empathy and responsibility. It's always like, well, what about me and this and that? I feel this. And I mean, you could flat out ask them, what is your responsibility in our issues, in our conflicts? And they'll sit there with a blank face and they're like, I don't know. Like, either they don't have the capacity to see it they're so blind, or they're so stubborn or arrogant that they don't think they are wrong at all in the cycle.
Mm.
I mean, that's the most glaring one.
Do you believe that narcissists can experience authentic emotion?
Ooh, I do believe so. Most of the time, though, that emotion is a tool and a manipulation. But I think they have their moments. I mean, of course, joy is the easier one when they're happy and they're getting their way. Of course, that's
Mm.
genuine. Like they're genuinely happy. Who wouldn't be happy because they're getting their way, right? And sometimes you also are happy because you're getting what you want. Sometimes both parties can get their needs met, but it's like when the crap hits the fan, that's when the litmus test that really shows you, is this person going to be a healthy partner or going to blame me and abuse me and be that narcissist who doesn't. And I have seen a narcissist be very vulnerable in a very low time in their life. But the mask can slip, but it gets put on pretty quickly. It doesn't last very long. It doesn't amount to any transformation or change. It typically is like that moment in time, whatever, substance or situation that kind of let the mask slip. It was just for a short time and then they put it back on.
Do you believe a narcissist is capable of feeling empathy?
True narcissists? No.
Yeah.
No. There can be a spectrum of narcissism where sometimes you may think that they feel empathy for you, like maybe a less of a narcissistic person, but no, that's kind of one of the definitions of a narcissist. If you're dealing with someone who you need to cut ties because they are so narcissistic and your conflicts are never getting solved, and it's usually the same issue that comes up over and over because it's never fixed or solved or they never change. There's no empathy. They
Yeah.
only think about themselves.
Mm-hmm. So as humans, we tend to, we allow a lot of labels. We want to label everything. We want to put everything into a label,
Right.
and we allow ourselves to be often influenced by those labels. And so, what I'm getting at is that if the empath is in a relationship with a narcissist, like if they're their child or their spouse, right? Or even their parent, and the behavior doesn't change, it continues to be toxic, and they don't see a way beyond that because of the nature of their relationship with the person, right, with the label that they hold. What is your advice on navigating situations like that? Because I asked this question intentionally because I see so many people that settle, right, that continue to sacrifice their own values, their own well-being, because this person's my kid or this person's my spouse, and so there's like nothing I can do about it.
I mean, of course, there's nothing you can do about to change them, but there's
Mm-hmm.
everything you can do about protecting your own energy. Just
Yeah.
because they are your child or they are your parent or spouse that you have children with, and you feel stuck, that doesn't mean that you have to stay with them. Like loyalty, unfortunately, I don't believe the whole blood is thicker than water thing, because I
Yeah,
guess I
neither do
believe
I.
in more of an ascended mindset, like that
Yeah.
our souls incarnate here, and my blood here wasn't my blood in the other lifetime, and it's like my soul family is much more stronger to me than
Mm-hmm.
that biological. So no, you don't have to be stuck there because you have some type of obligation to them or they are family. Sometimes that's even more reason to do the hard thing that's unpopular, is to just gently move them to the outer edges of your social circles. Like if
Yeah.
you imagine your life, you have, and unfortunately if you're living with them right now, they're in your inner circle because you live with them, you're always with them, they're always around. And if there's a way to move them to an outer circle for a time where you talk to them on the phone every once in a while, but you also like don't engage in the normal cycle of conversation. You talk about other things and then move them out even further. Maybe only talk every once in a while if it's still too painful. I mean, it's all about, to me, setting up expectations. What I've personally learned. What are you expecting out of it?
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be a perfect Brady Bunch family if it's toxic. Like, that expectation has to go out the window. That's not this lifetime's family structure you're set into. And you having a Akashic record experience, what's really interesting is I had a reading, and because I was really struggling with a sibling, and I just always felt this burden to fix the relationship, fix it. But it was the same cycle, nothing ever got fixed. Speaking of trying to fix something that doesn't want to be fixed. And in this reading, she said, you can do whatever you want, but that contract is done. Like, you don't need to really fix anything. Like she said, do what you want. Contract is done. They're kind of like in your soul pod family. They're actually strangers. Like, they're not in your soul pod family. And I was like, that's a really interesting concept. I never thought of it that way.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah. We have
But
different dynamics. Yeah. Different connections and contracts. Yeah, for sure.
it just felt really empowering, right? To kind of
Yeah.
disconnect the whole, like, I have to be loyal to my earthly blood family because, hey, they're just strangers in the soul world. So cool. Like, you can still talk to them if you want, but if it's really causing you pain, you don't
Yeah.
have to. So,
Well, we're here to learn too, right? I believe that one of the reasons why we're here is also for evolution. And I believe that some of these adverse circumstances that we find ourselves faced with are also purposed, for our learning, right? To evolve.
I mean, if everything was cushy, none of us would learn anything.
Right. Well, like, we're being given an opportunity to choose ourselves, and everyone listening already knows this, but I'm going to say it anyway, not choosing ourselves from a selfish standpoint, but choosing ourselves in terms of choosing to love ourselves, choosing to honor ourselves and our values, and not sacrifice, any of the true essence of who we are. I feel like we live many different lifetimes, and I feel like I believe that's how karma happens, right? It's like we each have free will. And if you choose to misuse your free will in terms of not honoring yourself, right, and choosing to face something that there's a lesson to learn, then that can keep coming back again, either in this current life or maybe even in another one.
Yeah. I mean, karma. I love the concept of karma, because that's also the other way that I was able to kind of release the concept of, like, forgiving to move forward. It wasn't like, oh, I'm forgiving and I'm just letting you off the hook for abusing me. No, I'm forgiving the situation because obviously it was set up for a reason for me to learn something. And I'm going to let karma get you, because I don't need to. I don't need revenge. I don't need to have any
No,
hate towards
everything
it.
plays out. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
I'd love for you to share with us how I find human design to be really fascinating, and I find it to be a really accurate, tool. And I love talking about human design. How do you integrate human design into the work that you do?
Um, Human design, actually, I see it as a flashlight out of the dark, right? If you imagine yourself being confused and brain fogged and your wires are all crossed about who you are, what's up, what's down, the narcissist is very good at doing this. I find, for me and for the people I help, it reaffirms who you are. It kind of gives you this map and flashlight out of the dark, out of this crazy maze of being with a narcissist and whatever they've conditioned and talked to you about. What's really amazing when I affirm them, it is because they've been beat down for so long about how forgetful they are, how dumb they are, whatever the thing is. Like, it's like the whatever negative entity that's attached to the narcissist knows this empowering, beautiful essence of this spirit that I get to see in the chart, and I get to read it to them and share it. Because a lot of times they'll break down and cry, or they'll be like, oh my God, thank you. Like, it's like a relief. Like, this person has been telling me for so long that I'm this negative aspect of this trait that's innate in their human design. And it's like, but that's who you are. Like, that's the beauty of who you are. That's actually your superpower. And I think it's just amazing. It's like the flashlight. It's like busting out of the lies and the dark cover that
Mm-hmm.
the darkness is trying to shield us from shining out.
How does that aid them in beginning to build that foundation of inner knowing, like inner confidence? Like, oh, going from hearing how amazing they are to knowing that.
Yeah, I always encourage them. The biggest things I love for them to learn is their inner authority,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the other thing is they don't trust themselves anymore after, they say, we choose to be with this person, but we didn't choose to be with an abusive person. We didn't know that they were abusive. That's how cunning they are. And then you get out of it and you're like, I can't believe I even did that. I can't trust myself. And again, to make choices or to do anything. And so the inner authority, I always encourage them to strengthen that, to practice it every day. And we can talk about the different types of inner authorities, but we all have a unique way that kind of is our way to trust our intuition according to our human design. And if you know that and you practice it, almost like going to the gym, lifting like 1 pound, then 5 pounds, then you can really lift some weights. When you've exercised that inner authority, that tells you like, I got this. Like, I can trust myself. I can learn my strategy. I can follow the breadcrumbs or wait for the invitation. And I can truly be who I am, learning about your soul's purpose here and all of your traits.
Let's play for
But
a second, if that's cool with you. So,
yeah,
yeah, let's share an example of authority. So we can put me in the spotlight. Why not? I
okay,
have
sounds good.
I'm a 6-2 projector. I have an emotional
Yes.
authority. So
Mhm.
what would be the highest aligned way for me to manage my authority?
So you want to feel through the process. Do
Okay.
not say yes or
Mm-hmm.
no right away.
Mm-hmm.
Right? A lot of people like to pressure us, especially scammers, spammers, and narcissists like to pressure us into giving them
Yeah.
an
Say
answer right
yes
away.
now.
Yes. What's super awesome is with you and your inner authorities, if you use it, you'll never fall for a scam ever again. Because you're like, as long as I promise myself not to say yes or no right away, then you can feel through that emotional cycle. It's just like the waves on a tide or like a clock. It has a very cyclical motion. And so you're going to feel really excited about whatever's proposed to you. You're going to feel neutral. Then you're going to feel all the low emotions about it, anxious, fearful, worried. And then you'll come back to that neutral point. And that's the place where you're going to find your most easy clarity. And you can ask your intuition, how do I feel about this now? And then you can make your decision. So I usually advise people who have the emotional inner authority to jot down, like when you're observing yourself in a journal, like I'm feeling really excited and high, like jot that down. I'm
Yeah.
feeling really worried and low, jot that the time down. So you typically most people have a pretty consistent cycle. So you'll know how long you need even, depending on the cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that I don't answer things right away, generally speaking. And if I'm faced with something or being invited into something, I'll look at it, and then I'll leave it alone. And then I'll come back in a couple days and I'll be like, how do I feel about it now?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, am
And
I
that's the
just as
thing too, is a lot
excited?
of people use the word think, like, and you can say think to other people, but right, like, oh, let me think about it. Well, you don't need to think about anything. You need to feel it, right? Feel
Yeah.
it in your body, feel your feelings about it, not thinking about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What would be, I'm sure some are more common than others, right? Like what would
Emotional
be
is the most common.
oh, it is the most common. Okay, good.
I think it's like 40 to 50%. It's a pretty high amount. And then there's the sacral,
Mhm,
inner authority, where you feel it in your gut and you let that sound come up. And then there's the splenic, and
mm,
then there's the self-projected, and ego. There's one more that's all very similar. Yeah,
yeah,
those are more
that's so
rare.
cool. I could talk about this with you for days. So, what else are you feeling guided to bring forward?
Hmm. Um, I had a thought.
Mhm,
And then, you know what's coming into my head is the spleen. The spleen is that center that guides or holds all of our fears to keep us safe,
mhm,
and it's an evolutionary old center, and it's the triangle on the left. And if you don't have your human design chart, you're wondering what in the heck we're talking about, I can pull up your chart for free. Um, or you can go to jovianarchive.com or geneticmatrix.com and just put in your information like a astrology chart with your birth information, and you can get that chart for free. So you can take a look at it. Um, and so the bottom left triangle is a spleen. So that to me is really important too, because the narcissist preys on our fears, right? They
mm,
really hone in and lean in on like, what do we fear the most? I always feared the future, like what would happen in the future. And a lot of times I hear this from a lot of people, no matter what they have in their spleen. The narcissist will say, I will be the only one who loves you, right? This, however they say it, right? Like I'm the only one that's going to ever truly know you and love you, making us feel like we'll never find true love out there and scare us away from even trying. And so there's these little numbers, we won't get into detail, but those numbers in the spleen are called gates. Those are kind of like personality traits. And so those numbers in the spleen are essentially what you innately fear. What do you fear the most about? And so it's going to be colored, and it's just kind of a consistent fear that's always there. So, in order to essentially block out the narcissist from using this fear, is if you know the fear, right? It's like almost like knowledge is power with the narcissist. So, if you know that you have this fear, you're like, okay, they're playing on that fear again. And then you can journal, write about it. You can just do a lot of different affirmations and mantras to heal that fear, almost to affirm the fear away. Like, um, so if you're afraid of being loved and you're afraid of the future, then you can say an affirmation to yourself that I love myself just the way I am. And, so and so loves me. This person loves me. I do not fear, and I have full confidence that someone else out here will love me, even if it's just my cat. Because that was my thing. I was like, I'm done with this BS. Like, only if cats are the only things that love me in this world, I'm fine with that. Right.
mm.
And so you can kind of affirm yourself out of that fear state that the narcissist has kind of locked you into.
That's so valuable. Thank you for sharing that.
Hmm.
Raven, for
Thanks for hearing it.
those who want to do a deeper dive with you, to connect with you, where is the best place for them to go?
Yes, my website, ravenscott.show. And I'll send you a link too that can be in the show notes. I have a landing page that can help you just find all of the things, but I have my books that you can kind of go through and read. I also can read your human design chart. So that's my second one, Empath's Guide to Rising Strong. My first book is Empath and the Narcissist. So I do have a chapter on human design in this one. The first one, chapter 12, it's at the very end. But like I said, there's 20 plus exercises in here. I've included like inner child meditation, EFT tapping, stuff about the moon, the full moon ritual. So this is more of like the second book, Empath's Guide to Rising Strong, is more of like a guidebook. So it has a
Yeah.
whole, all about the gates, an extensive like index of all of those numbers we talked about on the chart. You can look at your chart and go, what does it mean? Split definition, what is that? I've explained that in here. I've left places for you to journal in it. And then I also share with you about the story of goddess Inanna, the Mesopotamian goddess Inanna, to help you through. She goes to the underworld just as we go to the underworld when we're with a narcissist. And so it helps you kind of through that shadow work and that transformation. So
Wow, that
yes,
sounds amazing. And your books are available on Amazon?
they're available on Amazon, and the first book is available on Audible. And I need to get my booty recording the second one so I can put that on Audible as well. But
I personally
and
love Audible books.
I know, me too. Me too. And then, of course, I can do a reading. If you don't want to do all that research and you want to shortcut, we can just dive right into your chart and read your chart.
Yeah, which that's sometimes really helpful too, especially if you're more honed in on where you feel like you're needing support. Having a session can be tremendously helpful.
Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
so educational, and thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation and just to share all of your beautiful wisdom and knowledge and your beautiful energy with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and creating this podcast. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Path of the Awakened Heart. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or pathoftheawakenedheart.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about living with an awakened heart and navigating your ascension journey, visit me at jenniferspore.com.